Hello guys, welcome to one another episode in my podcast. And today here we have with us Maik Pfingsten, and he is one of the entrepreneurs working here in the Cologne region and of course in Germany. I had met Mike at an event at RWTH Aachen, my university, and he was here to give an introduction or presentation about his freelancing and entrepreneurial journey here in Germany. So I'll introduce Mike in a few sentences first. So Mike started as an engineer and he also worked in the industry for some years. And then he felt the need that he should get more buck or more money for his time. And then he started with his entrepreneurship journey and his freelancing journey. So Mike works as a freelancer and in specific, he provides productized services or product as a service to his customers, and he makes it possible for as an entrepreneur to work on his own terms in his own timelines and get more balance between his work and his lifestyle. And Mike is also an author and he has also hosted a podcast which he runs on his website. He has authored a book and he also guides other people from the industry or even entrepreneurs to start their own freelancing journey and to get better with their freelancing career. So, welcome, Mike, to the podcast.
Nice to be here.
Yes, so I would request you to introduce yourself or maybe tell us more in detail about your own freelancing business or what do you offer?
At first, may we can step in the word freelancing itself. As I started in 2005, my first engineering firm, I don't work as a freelancer. My goal was to ramp up a business, a company with employees, with some partners. The point is that we only here at the university and wherever you read or listen or see informations about entrepreneurship that the common business model is changing time for money. And this we implemented in our business like every other do. So we were a small boutique independent professional firm with a classic time for money business model. And this time for money business model is very similar to freelancing. The difference between freelancing and independent professional is as an independent professional, your target is to build a business. As a freelancer, normally the term freelancing came from the Middle Age. The kings want to go to war and they ran freelancing knights for the war. There's the source of this word. So a freelancer, in my personal term, is a person who is working independently, but for another job, which could be also done by an internal employee. I'm different. I'm an entrepreneur. I want to build a business. I want to have a business which is independent from me. The point is, here in Germany, nobody explained it to me in 2000, 2005. I first started thinking about entrepreneurship at the end of the 90s, where I was in university. And everybody told us, yeah, you are an engineer and yeah, you go out as a startup, you get some VC money and then you have 15 employees, burn the money, get the cake, and then you sell the company. And this is a normal story as a startup, especially in tech. But this model doesn't feel good for me. So they told us, then you can go the normal road, open up an engineering firm, take the time for money model, and this leads nearby to being a freelancer if you want to. Most of us are working more as an interim manager, but at the end of the day, interim management and freelancing is not so apart.
Okay, so you call yourself not as a freelancer, but rather as an entrepreneur who kind of works solo, or how is it? You work solo or
Yeah, I started as a normal independent professional, as a solopreneur. But in the first year, I got a partner in my business, and we got the first employee. So we ramped up at the end of 5 years between 2005 and 2010 the business to 15 employees, and at least at peak time 4 partners. So this was a normal classic story we have all of us heard in the time, that this is a normal way. Then in the partnership between all the other stakeholders, we had a cultural fight about the understanding of family and entrepreneurial life. So I quit the business and step out of it in 2010 and stand again in January 2010 here in Cologne in the south at the Rhine River, frustrated about the outcome of the first 5 years, thinking about how can I do this different. Yeah, I take over customers, so I was in business again, but my goal was to take a different road with my classic engineering business. I wanted to go into the internet. I want to provide my B2B service via web or via internet. So I don't have to travel. I don't have the time for money model anymore. At this time in 2010, nobody here in Germany can tell me how this should work. I asked a lot of other very experienced entrepreneurs, very successful people. I want to bring my engineering firm into the internet and provide all the services over the internet in a B2B situation. Most most responses to this idea was in 2010. Oh, well, Mike, internet, this go away. This is not important. As we know, yeah, most of us are doing business over the web. So in 2010, nobody can answer my questions. So I turned towards the US and take a look where are people in the US who can show me how we can do this, because my thoughts were the US guys plus minus 3-4 years ahead of us and may be able to show me, okay, when you want to bring your B2B engineering firm into the web and use the web to provide your service for a B2B small and medium business customer, how I can do it. And then the first steps was to have antenna to identify snake oil sellers in the US. It's extremely crowded with people who are pumping hot air, especially when we're talking about online business, etc., etc. But I found mentors who are really reliable, and then I asked them, okay, my idea is here, this small boutique engineering business. I want to bring the business into the internet. I want to provide the service over the web. My customers are B2B, small and medium companies. How can I do this? And then the US guys looked at me and told me, this is a topic we even don't have any clue about. So, I understand in 2010, 2011, I understand, okay, the US is extremely good doing online business in a B2C environment where you are selling to consumers. They don't have any clue about how to build an online business or how to build a B2B business online. So I decided to go on my own road and figure out how I can do this. And this was the reason why I started podcasting in 2012. With my first podcast, this was an engineering podcast where I talk about my profession. And in 2014, I started my second podcast, which is the entrepreneurial podcast, where I talk about my journey.
Okay. Yeah, that's super cool to hear. So you went to the US for inspiration,
Right.
but even they didn't have any foolproof solution to start a online B2B business, and then you started on your own, and then
Right.
you learned along the way.
Yeah. I must
Yeah.
figure out what works online. Most of the things I saw was US B2C methods, tools, whatever. And I must try to figure out how and in which cultural case sometimes this could work in Germany or in Europe in a B2B situation. For example, providing a online payment service like Stripe doesn't work with a purchase department in a mid-sized company. They aren't able to click on a link and buy your service via Stripe. Doesn't work. So I have to figure out how I can do this. And this was the time between 2010 and 2015 where I test a lot, try a lot, throw away, implement parts of what worked, throw parts away which doesn't work. And by accident in 2015, I productized one of my engineering service. So what I had done was that I thought about my service. I reduced and focused all my services I had to one service, and then systematize the service, put a value price tag on it so I can scale. And at the end, I had a service which was more like a product than a professional service, which is normally run by hourly rates.
Okay. And could you share with us what exactly is your service, or exactly your products that you offer?
I
And
had one,
and
yeah, I had one. Yeah, sure.
also, who are your typical customers? Are these companies or individuals, or about that?
Yeah, one of my engineer as a system engineer, I'm professional when it comes to create and construct complex systems, which include mechanics, electronics, and software systems. So the first main step normally when you develop a complex new product, a complex new system, you must sit down and write down all the requirements and all the wishes from the point of view as a customer who want to have this system. This is a document, this is a very technical document which is called customer requirement specification. This is a leading first document you normally have to do when you're starting a development project. But this is a task which most of the engineers, especially in Germany, but I think worldwide is the same, hates. They don't want to write down requirements. They want to develop, they want to construct, they want to write code, they want to jump into doing work on the solution. They don't want to sit for days or weeks and writing down a whole lot of sentences trying to catch the requirements, to catch all the wishes. But this document is one of the most important document in project management. If you don't have this type of document, your project is at high risk to fail because nobody thought about what can happen, what are the needs of the customer, what are the needs of the market. But writing this document is part of my basic profession. It's not my most loved work, but I can do it. So I figure out there is a niche and there is a high need in the market because my customers don't have the time, don't have the knowledge, and even don't have the motivation to write down this document. And writing down this document and hand it over is part of my systems engineering profession. So I decided this would be my first service I want to take over into this productized model. The customers are normal mid-sized companies like Hilti, like Zeiss, Zig, all these classic middle-sized hidden champions here in Germany or Europe who are about 5,000 employees. So not the big companies. I focus on the middle size because they have the money, they have the understanding, and don't have so much discussion with the purchase department. Whatever, I can take I can offer the service, and the customer buy more or less directly. So this was the reason why I started at first with this. Afterwards, I established a second productized service, which was a mentoring over 1 year, where I, as a virtual mentor, guide a project team for a year to learn and understand systems engineering so that they are able to walk alone after this 12 month. And I productized this also.
Cool. Okay. And you said you developed a customer requirement specification.
Yeah, I
So
wrote them.
that, yeah.
After 2 weeks, I hand over a complete and released version of this document to the customer so they can take it and do whatever the next steps are on their side.
Okay. So I just want to know, so you work with which team from the, say, parent company? It's like the project team,
Mhm.
and also with their customers, like their end user.
Depend why they choose my service. Some customers who choose my customer requirements in 2 week service, my productized service, are the customer who need this document for their supplier. So they took my outcome and hand it over to their supplier and say, these are our requirements, these are our wishes. But there are also suppliers where the customer from them aren't be able to provide such a document. So the supplier took my service and then they build this specification, sometimes with a customer from them, sometimes without, because the customers don't really understand what we are talking about. So they need this document more or less like a placeholder for something that the customer aren't able to provide.
Okay. Yeah, I get it.
Hmm.
And are there any specific industries, for example, the conveyor industry, which provides, say, personalized projects for certain system, say a con like I had worked in a, like, a material handling industry before, and we used to provide customized conveyor system solutions for
Hmm.
cement industries.
Hmm.
So the case was like the customers used to provide us a document of their requirements beforehand, and then you are like a person which will help the customer, for example, our customer, any cement company, to come up
Right.
with the very formal requirements.
Right. Right. So that you get a professional document on your desk where you as a supplier can work with.
Okay. And are there any specific industries or niches in the industry which you serve the most?
I was more niched down by the size of the customers. I don't want to have big companies, but I don't want to have really small or startups because the need in this small and medium business area is huge. I wrote customer specification for logistic quadrocopter on the Haber of Hamburg. I wrote a customer specification for a robotic in the production line. I wrote it for a web app for a transportation company in Leipzig. The content was all over the place. Star recipe was that the art how I do my work in these 2 weeks are always the same. The recipe is the same. How I, as a professional, do my work is every time the same structure, the same process. The content completely differ from software over mechatronics to maybe construction based systems.
Okay. And then you must have a knowledge of these different fields. For example, you're working in a
Mhm.
logistic firm, or then other on the other hand for an electronics firm, and then you need to have the knowledge, like basic knowledge about.
Not really. The knowledge in the content, the what should be in the document, this came from my customers. I am the professional who took the information they gave me and put it in a professional structured document. So whatever they told me, I put it down there. Yes, of course. I'm not in a clean area. So I had a background as a system engineer in the automotive development, and I served as a troubleshooting project management some years to bring back complex, huge development project back on track. And I had a software background from my earlier years, so I knew where I can put my fingers in and ask questions specific to, hey, what's about this? And then they stand there and, no, really interesting question. We never thought about it, but maybe should write something down there. So yeah, sure, I brought my experience with it, but the main content and depend on what information or whatever they had, they gave me, and I structured into a professional released document.
Okay. So you are kind of preparing a very formal and a professional formatted document from the from the maybe loose requirements or jumbled requirements provided.
And this was a different to I had done this service before I productized it, but on the time for money business model. So I normally offered around 80 to 100 hours, and then we start, and plus minus we will get to an outcome around 2 to 3 weeks mostly. But then in 2015, when I stepped back from this type of serving my customer towards the productized version of the same service, the difference was I told them after 2 weeks you have a complete and released specification on your desk. End of story. And now I was able to put a value-based price tag on it because it's like buying a car or a package of milk. There is an outcome. I'm sure that I can provide it, which solve a problem from a customer. And now I can value my part of the service. For example, the content and the information which I put in the document, this is a value which came from the customer. My value is taking this as an expert and bring it into the structure for the specification. So I can think about what is the value overall and which percentage of the value came from my service. So I was able to put a value-based price tag on it. And this works great because now the customers never ever ask me again about how many hours I need to build this outcome. And then I was able to get more and more and more and more efficient on my side at the same price tag. So at the end, I was for the normal track version of the customer requirement specification. They pay me 12,500 euros, and I was able to be under 30 hours on my side, which is from profit point of view excellent.
Okay. And yeah, I had a question
Mhm.
like this format of customer specifications.
Mhm.
Is it specific to Germany, or is it the same worldwide, or only German companies do the very formal customer specifications? How is it?
You need this type of document in every development project, whatever you are doing. Independent if it is a huge development project or a small one, this is a very important document you need whenever you start a project. My price tag, my value pricing depends on the project budget they estimated for the project. Normally, most of my customers do have a project budget around plus minus 5 million euros. So this is a range where I am especially good in de-risk by serving them with my customer specification service.
Okay. And so your like you said, the price for your productized service varies varies depending on the size and the say the
Right.
budget of the project.
Right. What I normally done with my customer at the first call when they request my service or ask me, can we talk about your service? I calculate the price on the fly live in the call. I ask them, okay, what is your project budget for this project? And then they they are not sure if they can give me the real number because depending on contracts where they don't share information outside the project, so I'm external, they aren't sure, can they give me the real number? And then I look at them and told them, okay, I will throw a number. There can be the zero plus or 10 minus. The mathematics behind it will be the same. And then I throw 5 million euros as a project budget on the wall. And what I see directly is how they react. When they fell asleep, when I call 5 million, then I directly understand we are talking about a much, much bigger project budget. 50,000, 100,000, 200,000 million. But the point is, such huge projects are system of system projects. And then we are not talking about one customer specification. We talk about a huge set of customer specification. And these are the huge customers I don't want to serve. When I call these 5 million euros as a project budget, and they in seconds sit before the camera in front of me and get big eyes, I directly know that they have a much smaller project budget.
Yeah.
500,000, whatever. They are too small. When you have this small type of a project, there are other methods who can de-risk your project. 5 million euros was the ideal bandwidth where I can serve them. So directly, when I call this 5 million as an example, I saw on their reaction, hit it the mark. Am I above or below? And I can directly take a first shot who's sitting in front of me. Then the next step I done is when you're doing project management, there is risk management, which is a basic part of project management itself. Everybody learns it in the basic training of project management, that you have to do risk management, which means you must try to calculate how big is your risk that your project fails. Most of the companies completely ignored this method. So when I ask them, okay, what about the risk? Had you done risk management? They stand in front of me and say, risk management, I'm not sure. I must ask my project manager if we do this or not. Then I say, it's okay. There are studies out there. Everybody knows this from the Standish group. Hey, let's take 30% from the studies, or let's take 1/3. It's easier to calculate. 1/3 from 5 million is 1.5 million euros put into the Swiss safe to take it out when your project fails and pay the fire workers. Or what you can do is, this is also part of risk management and project management, you can figure out what can you do up front to lower the risk in the project. For example, a really experienced project manager who have a huge track record in handling such project. Reduce risk, of course. Or you can bring up a really experienced team to develop the system, which, of course, de-risk the project. You can write down all the customer requirements and the wishes. And, of course, this also reduces the risk in the project. So there are studies out there that the customer requirement specification normally lower the risk about 80%. When I told 80%, they had fallen from the chair. So I took the story easy and said, okay, 1/3 the project manager, 1/3 the team, and 1/3 the specification, which means I told them 1.5 million risk amount divided by 1/3 means that the value of the specification we talked about is 500,000 euros. So now I was the first person in their whole professional life who give them a number on a set of pages with. I was the first who said this document valued 500,000 euros. And then the next step I took was, okay, most of the value came from your side, the content, 80% of the value, 20% came from me as a professional who bring this in order to hand over a professional document. 80% from 500,000 euros is 400,000 euros. This is a value you bring in. And 20% means 100,000 euros. This is a value I brought in. So there is a value pricing that from the value I provide by my service. And normally you have in a normal development project, which runs a year and a half, you have 3 to 5 releases of this customer requirement specification. So I told them, okay, we divide the 100,000 by 5. My price is 20,000. And every time they go with me. And so I had at the end a range of 10 to 25,000 euros as a value pricing tag for the same service, depending on the project budget. And this calculation you only can do when you have productized your service, when you have systematized how you do your professional work.
Okay. Now that we have like 15 minutes or so, I would just ask some of the questions
Yeah,
that I
sure.
have in mind, and then you can
We
reply
have time.
uh yeah, yeah, as in detail for whichever question you like, you
Mm-hmm.
can do that. So I would like to ask you, like, you said you had started like a business with 15 people or so
Mm-hmm.
before, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's right. And
Yep.
then when do you think, like, I'm asking this from, like, say, entrance into the industry or me as a master student,
Mm-hmm.
is it possible or viable for a, say, a newly entrant into the industry to start a business right away? Or when is it recommended to start it? And I
Mm-hmm.
will I will also continue with the next question so that you can just
Mm-hmm.
answer according to
Mm-hmm.
your, yeah, detail, according to the detail you wish. And the next question is, what would be your message to students wanting to start a business eventually? Should they take experience from the industry first, or should they just get themselves thrown into the cold water? How
Mm-hmm.
should they do that? And the third question, you can tell us more about your future projects and what is the most important thing that you like from your job as a, like, a solopreneur or as a entrepreneur. What do you like the most?
Okay. When to start a business when you're finished university. My own decision was that I want to go into the industry as an employee for 5 years. I had a set date in mind when I started in summer 2000 in the automotive development that I told myself in summer 2005, I will quit the job and go my own way. This was my decision. I want to have a track record of 5 years in the industry to be able to jump into entrepreneurship. You don't have to do this. There are people out there, and I knew some from the HTVR Aachen. They directly jump after the master, finishing the master into ramping up a business as a professional service business. One is a student. She now lives in Berlin. She directly started after leaving Aachen University a professional service business around water, clearing water, whatever. It's really niche. But it was a topic where she worked as a student in a company, so she had a lot of background in this type of niche industry, and she saw as a student working in a similar company or in this water supply area. She saw the gap and decided to jump right ahead after university. So both can work, but I think you must have a feeling or you must have a deeper understanding of the industry where you are being. You can do it by working as a student in a company beside the university, or as I had done it, I worked full time for some years, and then I have a clear set date as a milestone where I decided I will quit my job. Independent where I am, independent from a career, maybe, whatever. I knew in July 2005 I will take my feet and go my own way.
Okay. And yeah, the next yeah, one was about is about what do you like the most?
Yeah.
Apart, like, of course, yeah.
Good point. This is a good point. May what I had done in 2005 or from 2005 to 2010 is to mirror what they told me in university when I was at startup trainings or similar events in the university, where they told me VC money, 15 employees, burn the money, get the cake, sold the companies. It's normal startup story. What I, in 2005, when I started my own business, I implemented more or less the same. I had at the end 15 employees. I don't have a VC. I don't want to have a VC, but I have a bank which have a big credit for us. We burned the money. Then 2008 came with a blue eye. We came out of the crisis, getting a different project in our company, but the end the company broke not on the 2008 world economic crisis. It broke more in 2009 on the value level from the owners of the company. So I decided to step back from my own company and restart again 5 years later. And in this point, I decided to go as a solopreneur. I never ever want to have this big, complex, sometimes crazy business beside me where I run for the employees, I run for my partners, I run for the customers. I felt in a hamster wheel, which was golden, extremely golden. But 80 hours a week was normal. And I don't want to have it again. I want to be on my own. I want to be free. Freedom is the main drive, was the main driver, at least why I decided to be self-employed or an entrepreneur. This is the motivation behind. I want to be free and I don't want to have a business where I am reliable for the business. I want to have a business who supports my lifestyle, not the other way around. And this was a decision in 2010 to go my own ways as a solopreneur, not as a freelancer, as a solo entrepreneur, try to build a business and try to build this B2B professional service business directly in the internet. So you can hear your inner voice, and maybe there is a voice talking about freedom, and then it could be a better way to go as a solopreneur. You do the work as an entrepreneur, but without employees. Build a business, build a system, and the business can support your lifestyle.
Okay. And yeah, the other question was, what are your future plans? Would you like to stick to the the same product you're offering, or maybe switch the industry altogether, or is there anything?
The story after 2015, where by accident I productized my service, had a longer journey afterwards. This was a game changer, switching to the different business model, the productized service business model. I scaled the service as a solopreneur with other star chiefs, which are independent professionals who take over orders from my side, who I trained on my star recipe. And then I talk with the customer, and when we are fine, I turn around and ask my star chiefs, other engineers who were trained on my productized service, hey, there's a customer, this is a topic, this is a time schedule, who is interested in? And then one of the four take over the order. This was a ramp up in scaling the business without employees. I scaled the business online with other independent professionals. Doing that had to lead towards other independent professionals, other entrepreneurs in this area came towards me and asked me, can you help me with this productized? So in 2015, in 2017, I started a side gig, or not a side gig, it was more or less a side business beside my main business, which is the engineering business, was the engineering business, to help other independent professionals to productizing their services. This was small online workshop, assemble a group, lead them through my process, how I build my own productized service so that they can build their own productized service. And this business runs years beside my main business. And in 2022, I sold my main business. I sold my engineering business. So now I have the time and the freedom to focus mainly on serving and helping independent professionals to building.
Mentoring.
Yes, so to build the productized service business model. And actually, I'm more like a mentor or an investor. I am invested in some of the productized services I support, but also they can take the workshop, and after 2 days, they go through the door with a complete productized service at hand, so they can directly go to the customers.
Okay, that's great. So you have like sold the engineering part, or
Mhm.
maybe outsource that?
I sold it. I sold
outsource
it
that
completely.
first, then you,
I outsourced, quote
it's
unquote, I
first,
outsourced it to my star chief, my engineers who are performing like masters on the craft. And afterwards,
then you sold it.
I sold the business with the engineering podcast and all the online parts to another engineering company.
Okay. And a very last question. What it's like a very deep question or a very thoughtful thing. Like, what would be the three pieces of advice you would like to give a younger Mike today?
Start
Maybe
earlier.
maybe it's about the general in life,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
mostly in general life, because that's what it is.
Start earlier. Um, I think I had an entrepreneurial part in my own since my youth. But where I grown up here is a very crowded industry area in Germany. So I had nobody around myself who has an entrepreneur or at least self-employed understanding. Most of the people around me when I was young was working as employees. So I had a lot of employee mindset around me. Nobody who can to show me how entrepreneurship could work. So I only understand that freedom is a huge value for me, and I'm not so gifted as an artist. So I only saw entrepreneurship as a second road to go. But I thought I must have the engineering diploma. I must have 5 years in business as an entrepreneur to start my own business. I think starting earlier, maybe starting at the youth with side businesses, whatever, helps you a lot to learn and understand how to start and grow a business, even if it is a small sidekick as a 17-year-old guy. This was one huge thing what I would do different. This is the one thing what I would do different.
Okay. Anything else, like in general about life,
Yeah,
or
there's one
yeah,
tip my mentor gave me. When we fail as an entrepreneur, mostly we interconnect failing as a personal failure. But my mentor taught me we came from the university, which mean we have a normal process how we evaluate knowledge, which mean we have a hypothesis and then an experiment. And the experiment shows us if the hypothesis is right or wrong. Mostly it's somewhere in between. So we can learn, change change the different parts of the hypothesis, and then do a next experiment. This release this personal part of being a failure towards this was a hypothesis, gone wrong, next hypothesis, try a better way. But I'm as a person doesn't fail anymore. It doesn't have the connection between my business fail and I am a bad person, I'm a failure, was broken up.
so you learned that if something doesn't like turn out well, it's not solely because of you. It could be other factors, maybe the situation involved, other people involved in that.
The
That's what.
hypothesis wasn't good or something
Yeah, maybe
changed, something happened, whatever.
it's not you. It's maybe you may work for it in other way, or put the effort or energy in some other points, and then it would turn out better the
Hmm.
next time. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like very applicable to everyone,
Yeah,
because
especially when we
yeah,
have the background as
as
engineers.
a student,
Yeah,
yeah, student,
this
that's
is what we
exactly
learned in university, how to collect knowledge.
true. That's very true. And so let's come to the end. If you or yeah, or if you want to talk otherwise,
When you have
yeah.
questions, go ahead.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so yeah, that way I was like very coming up towards conclusion. And yeah, so there are not many open questions, I would say. I would just like to know, how did you feel coming on our podcast and expressing, or do you have any feedback or suggestions on it? Also, so you could talk about uh your podcast interest, like you as a podcaster. How do you handle it? What are your future plans about the podcast? You can tell us about that.
My main driver today is to hand over my knowledge as an entrepreneur. What I'm doing now as a mentor is what I had searched for 25 years ago. There was nobody who can explain me how I can build a professional service business, how I can build it online, what I have to maybe understand before, where are roads where you can stuck, where are holes you can fell in. There wasn't any person who was able to talk. Nobody talked about the productized service business model. And now I am in a role where I give and hand over this learning to your generation. You have saw me at the university at the startup bootcamp in Aachen. I do this in Aachen since years, 2 times a year. It's the same speech I hold there, but I knew this was a speech I had seeking for at the end of the 90s when I was in the
In the
university.
university.
This was the part at the startup training in my university long time ago, which I missed. So actually, I am driven by explaining this productized service model, how good it works, especially for independent professional, for knowledge workers. And when you build a business on this topic, on your knowledge, build a business on your knowledge, this is the best business model you can choose. The worst business model is time for money. Actually, I'm running my business. I had written the book, which was a bestseller 1 year ago. My podcast running since over 10 years. Talk mostly about case studies now, but you can listen back to all the episodes where I started to showcase what works, what doesn't work at the time there. So my knowledge is all baked into the podcast.
Okay. Yeah. Also, yeah, we can come to an end. So so thanks a lot for joining us. Hope you enjoyed talking with us. And thanks for your time and for sharing your journey. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah.